How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have the founder of Fresh Media Works. His name is Chris, and is one of the five first person in the world that make ever a podcast. So, Chris, tell us, what is your secret? What are the 5 steps for you to make your first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Well, I think the first step is figure out your passion, right? So you've got to figure out what the heck you will want to do and put all your energy into. And then once you figure out that passion, you figure out what medium is best for telling your story. You mentioned podcasting. That's obviously a super important method or medium right now. It's not always the best, but figure out what that medium is and then tell your story. And don't sell, don't promote, tell your story. It's all about stories. It's always been about stories since we lived in the caves. It's been about telling stories. Figure out how to tell that story, get in front of your people. And you get in front of your people several different ways. You figure out who they are, then you get in front of them. And then work hard and keep doing it. That's finally number 5 is don't quit. Most people, if they don't get instant success, they end up pivoting or going in another direction or seeing a shiny object, and you just have to stick with it.
And then, Chris, you talk about the story because at the end of the day, exactly like you said, we learn through stories, even when we are babies, when we go to bed, right, and we are kids. Um, we hear a story, and this is the more so telling the story is the most engaging um, ways for you to get the hours the audience entertained. And so what are the secrets, or what are the main elements that a great story should have?
Sure. Yeah. Ideally, it's true. There are people who can tell stories, who can embellish and create a good narrative. You see those on Netflix. Those are made up. But true stories really suck people in. And that's why you mentioned I was one of the early podcasters. The story of how I got into podcasting is much more powerful than me saying why people should podcast.
Okay. Uh, okay. Let's see what's the story then. So, Chris, tell us, how come you become the number 5 podcast
Yeah.
in the world? Yeah. So, what happened?
Well, I'm a technology nerd. I always have been, always on the cutting edge of technology just because it's so interesting. In fact, I was playing with AI in the 80s. So, but I was doing internet radio when podcasting was invented. I was doing live broadcasts on the internet. I happened to know the inventors of podcasting. It was Adam Curry and Dave Weiner. Adam Curry, a lot of people, older people may remember him. He was an MTV VJ. He did, I think, a show called Headbangers Ball on MTV. And you wouldn't think he was a nerd. He had the big, 80s rock hair. And but he was a nerd. And Dave Weiner, Silicon Valley entrepreneur, that between them, they came up with this technology to attach your rich media, audio and or video, to an RSS feed. And I know I'm getting nerdy here, but you attach that and it would automatically
Go for it. You can go, nerd.
I can
That's
go
fine.
nerdy. Nice. Thank you. Thank you. I told you I'm a technology nerd. So yeah, they came up with that and we were playing around, having some conversations online, and I thought I'll give this a try. At the time, I was living in Houston, Texas. I had a background in Texas high school football. I played it. I did some coaching. I did some officiating. And I thought, well, nothing is easier to sell in Texas than Texas high school football. So I did a show called Lone Star Gridiron, which was that fifth show ever created. That show is still going. It's got a website now that gets millions of hits a year, and we get a large portion of our revenue generated through that channel. We have since expanded out, and we do other sports. We do other services for other companies as well to help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast. But yeah, that's really how it started. Was I married my love of Texas high school football with my love of technology and gave it a try, and it worked.
So tell us, what are the messages do you have for the entrepreneurs out there that are struggling to grow the business? We have a statistic that 90% of the business fails in the first 2 years.
Mhm.
So why do you think that these businesses are failing, and what message do you have for the entrepreneurs that are struggling, try to go from 0 to 1 to achieve the
Yeah.
first million?
Well, I tell you, there's a couple different reasons why these enterprises fail. Um, Mine would have failed simply because I was too early, but I had a marketing company that paid the bills. So I kept doing the podcasting out of passion. All of 2005, I traveled around the country speaking to business groups, speaking to college groups, saying, look, this new technology is here, podcasting. You can be the media. It's changing everything. And it was blank stares. It was way too early. So if I had relied on podcasting 100%, I would have gone out of business because it was years later before any money was made in podcasting. So that's one reason companies fail is they're too early. But another reason is maybe they don't understand. One of my favorite sayings is you're not the customer. I've had conversations with business partners and they come up with all these great ideas. We should have it do this, or we should make a whiz bang thing that does this. And I'll ask why. Oh, because it's cool, or because I would like it. And I try to tell them, you're not the customer. So we put it out there, we test things, and we get feedback from the customer. If you don't give feedback, you don't know. You may spend a lot of time spinning your wheels, dreaming up all these things that you think are great, and they aren't willing to pay for. So that's one of the other reasons. The other thing I alluded to, I think before we went on the air, was focus. Confucius says, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. So that's one of the things that happens is they will make a little bit of money at something, but it's not where they wanted it to be. So then they'll go off and start, okay, I'm going to write books. Okay, well, I'm going to go into acting, or I'm going to go into, I'm going to sell janitorial services. They'll keep changing what they're doing. And because of that, none of them has the attention to grow, and you need to stick with it. Another thing is being afraid of partnerships. I know everybody has heard horror stories about partners that ripped them off or didn't live up to promises or something like that. But you can't do it all as a solopreneur. There's very few solopreneurs who have made millions. It just doesn't happen. You need people. So you have to trust, you have to try and keep moving.
So yes, I remember. I think that you're very right in this, that sometimes in business you wait too early. I think that
Yes.
the worst number in business is one. Sometimes people come to see me with an idea. Look, Harry, this idea is so unique. This business is amazing. Nobody else is doing it. And
Yeah.
when when somebody came with that, we come with this. You have to be very careful, because maybe the reason why nobody's doing it yet is because there is no market for it.
Right. There's no
And
profit.
no market,
Um,
yeah. Or
let's say one of the
nobody's willing
sayings
to
I
pay
love,
money. Yeah.
yeah, one of the things I love is the pioneers get the arrows. So if you're out there ahead of everybody else, the arrows are going to get you. And let everybody else figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then
Yeah,
go in there.
yeah. I have a story about this because the one of my brilliant ideas. I own several businesses during my life from, and one of them was I decided to create the first halal Spanish tapas in Brick Lane in London. And oh my God, the I brought the one of the best chefs from the Hilton to design the menu,
Mhm.
and the thing is, it was so new. Exactly what you said. It was so early. It was a new type of food. For I don't know. Brick Lane is in London is known as a curry corridor. So a lot of Indian food and from food from Bangladesh, spicy food,
Mhm.
and I was the only one offering Spanish
Yeah.
food for the Muslim community. So it had to be halal, so definitely no pork, no alcohol. So I opened a different type of food for that community. And oh my God, I remember the people passing by the restaurant laughing and asking me, "What are you doing here?" So I stayed 2 years there. I closed it, lost 200,000 pounds. I lost my girlfriend back in the day. It was a disaster. It was a big
Yeah.
failure. Thankfully, I have other businesses that property ones and the other ones that helped me to get back on my feet. But you know what happened? Now you go to Brick Lane and 50% of the restaurants are alternative food. Actually, they were waiting for me to fail and to
That's
leave. So it
right.
was way too early. And then now you walk with the road. I'm walking right now with this road. I said, this is ridiculous. I was the first here. And
Yep.
they want to do a documentary like Once Upon a Time in Brick Lane talking about my restaurant, someone that came with that crazy idea. So the whole point, Chris, you're right. When you are the first in the market, you do have to be very, very careful. And I understand, by being one of the fifth, number five podcasts in the world, this early adoption is a process that it is expensive
Yes.
because it takes time to explain the product to the people. It takes time to communicate the value. They just don't know. And so, how you handle adversity? How you said that you have your marketing agency the same way that I have my property
Yeah.
business. But how do you handle adversity? Why you were doing this podcast? I mean, you said 20 years ago, right?
Yep.
2005.
Yeah.
So imagine 20 years ago, who's gonna be thinking about this podcast? Yeah, I just started
Yeah.
7 months ago. I said so.
Nice. And you're doing a great job.
Well, people are loving it. Yeah. So
Yes.
then, Chris. So so how you handle this rejection
Yeah.
and that adversity and how you find the strength to keep going?
Yeah, I don't, I'd like to say it was this incredible strength I had, but it wasn't. It was I loved doing it. It was fun. And so I just said, okay, this is a hobby for now. I tested to see if it could make money early on and discovered it could. I did a hyper local show. I did one called This Week in Houston just to see. And while I didn't get a whole lot of money, I got into anything I wanted to for free. I even got into the Super Bowl that was in Houston by having the podcast.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And so I thought, okay, I can't make money yet, but it gives me access. So
Hmm.
I leveraged that access and I use that I mentioned the first one was high school football. I connected with the governing body of high school sports in Texas, the UIL. I connected with them, became good friends with the executive director. I then connected with the Texas High School Coaches Association, which is the largest coaches association in the world, close to 30,000 members, and became friends with them. And yes, none of them were paying me any money, but it gave me some credibility. So then I could go speak to groups and pitch the ideas. And I ended up writing a book with the head of the UIL about the head of the Coaches Association. and that gives more credibility. So again, it wasn't, I didn't need to make money from it. I needed to grow this passion and this connection. And now it's working out great because we're doing hundreds and hundreds of shows related to high school sports.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
this undoubtedly is one of the biggest biggest positive things about a podcast. It's just the people, imagine this one, 5 step how to make the first million. We interview 500 millionaires.
You're right,
They
right.
are all my friends. They got in my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Now I know you. You know me.
exactly,
So
it's a great
we
way
have,
to build and create relationships. Yeah, and
yeah.
and to explore what the other person is doing, and how and creates a lot of collaborations. Like I said, these the from people from the podcast, they after the podcast finished, they contact me, Harry, I had this project, I have this, can you help out? And I'm just so busy trying to help my podcast guests with the project. Some of them, building the developers doing real estate. Some of them they are in tech. Some of them have a lot of money and want to invest in projects. Some of them are having a company and they want to grow. They're looking for funding. So these have been a bless for me, right?
Mhm.
I do also understand, when it comes to the authority. I wrote several books and I speak all over the world, as you can see behind
Yeah.
in the screen, about in the topics of how to start growing the business, overcome the fear of public speaking, how to make your brand from local to global from the stage. And however, Chris, I think, in my opinion, that if you are a podcast host, right, the level of authority that I give you in the topic that the podcast is about
Yeah.
is really really strong. And the other thing is that I didn't know is that there are a lot of part of the world that people drive a lot and they can listen to podcast on the car.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I started this podcast. All this type of thing I just find out what I doing. So how do you see the potential of podcasts worldwide? Do you think it's a growing market or
Yeah.
not really?
No, it's exploding right now. It's really big. You mentioned driving in the car. I live in Texas, so everything is far. So we have long drives. So yes, lots of podcast listening. But as far as the market itself, um, there's a couple people who will come up to you and say, "Oh, there's too many people podcasting already. There's no market for it." But it's true. There's about 25 million people who have created a podcast. The problem for them was 99.5% quit before episode 11 because it's work, and so that means that's active right now. There's about 3 million. That's it that are active. So the
We are
opportunity
not
is
quitting, Chris. Definitely, we're not quitting here. Yeah.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no, not at
absolutely.
all.
But I do agree with you. It's a big job. I didn't know about it. Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
that's why what
lot
we
of
do that
work.
that's why what we do in our company is we do all the heavy lifting. We do all the back end work for you. All you do is record your show and you're done because we saw that need, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my God! It was when I talked with our IT team. I said to my IT team, "Look, I want to do a podcast." They asking me, "What? Why is this?" I said, "Guys, I want to do it." And they told me, "Okay, Harry, let us think about it." And yeah, after 3 weeks, somehow they come with something that I just
Yeah,
press the button. And honestly, I don't know what has happened after this.
right.
But I know
Yeah,
that
they're
goes to all
working.
my social media, go to Spotify, go to Apple. They
Yep.
develop, websites, software that distribute the whole thing. I go to my YouTube channel and so on. They process all the information. So, but I am aware that is a lot of work in the back end because, we're talking about hours of footage that they
Yeah.
have to be processed, they have to be edited, they have to be displayed. Each social media channel have different characteristics that we can post
Right.
the content. So we need to look at this carefully. Actually, we are reviewing this at the moment to increase even the viewership
Yes.
in the social media channels. We have over a quarter million followers, but we want to reach to a million. So again, it's a big job.
Yes. Yes.
You're talking about hours and hours of content that had to be dealt with, repurposed, treated. Because the whole point of the podcast, this is what I'm saying to my team, is to reach as more people as possible. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? It's a lot of work.
Amen.
You
Yes,
see,
sir. Yes,
people
sir.
have to listen to it. That's the whole point. You see, and sometimes like Chris, because honestly, I'm loving it a lot. I'm meeting
Yeah.
amazing people. I'm having a great day. Honestly, it changed the way it changed my day. Meeting amazing people like you.
Yeah.
Look, my
Yeah.
God, who's gonna tell me that I'm gonna meet in person the number fifth podcaster in the world? Yeah, I can't even dream of that. They should make a statue of you. uh, you see, so in the yeah, because nobody talks about the early adopters, and because I have early
Right.
adopting business and it failed, nobody never talk and I give credit to the people that actually the founded, the people that took the risk and actually create the industry for now for all of us to benefit,
Right.
because somebody had to start first, and it's tough and it's expensive and it's frustrated and at least you and I we've been there, so we know how it feels. So
Yeah.
so now, okay, so what message do you have then for the entrepreneurs and then for our fellow, if somebody want to start the podcast
Yep.
and they already did five and they feel like quitting, they feel like, oh, what's the point to do this, too many people are doing it. Actually, if too many people are doing the podcast, it's a good news. that
Right.
means that
Right.
means that means that there is demand for it, right? It's the same.
Working.
people
Yeah.
people say, well, I don't want to write a book about recipe in the kitchen. Well, books about recipes, well, clear is demand for it. When you go to a bookstore, there are a lot of cooking books,
Right.
so that means that people are buying them, otherwise they won't be there. So the fact that there is a lot of podcasts out there, that means that there is demand for it. So
Yeah.
what message do you have for our fellow entrepreneurs and fellow podcasters that they say that
Sure.
is too much and they're about to quit?
Yeah. I would say one, stick with it, but two, find some pieces you enjoy doing and then outsource the rest. Like I said, with my company, we do we first do a free consult with somebody thinking about going into podcasting. And in there, we discover everything, what you want to teach about, do you want guests? Do you want to be yourself talking, a talking head? Or, what type of show, how frequent, how long it should be. We go through all of that and figure out everything from the album art to the background music to everything. And that's all free. So just to show them, hey, here's what you should do. And then from there, we offer a launch service where we can actually do the work for them. All they have to do is record their little bit. We do all the work and teach them how to do it. So they never need us again. If they never don't want us, they don't need us again. We just help them launch. But most of the time, they'll come back and say, hey, could you do the editing? Could you do the distribution? And that's fine. But as far as why, a recent study came out, and this is talking about advertising. Right now, there's a measurement called ROAS, return on ad spend, and they keep track of what's working, what's not. As a marketer, I am platform agnostic. I don't care what I don't push people to podcasting because I push them to what works for them. Right now, podcasting is the top ROAS of any medium right now. It beats billboards, it beats television, radio, social media, influencers, it beats Facebook ads, it beats everything right now. It's got a 4.9 ROAS, 4.9x ROAS, which means for every dollar you spend, on average, it returns $4.90. So even radio is like 3 something. So it's much better than anything else. So now I'm telling everybody, podcast, 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 because it works. And it works because podcast host, a study came out middle of last year that said the most trusted media personalities in the world are podcast hosts. And first you think, wow, but then you think, oh yeah, nobody trusts the media. So it's not real hard. But the reason we're trusted, the reason Harry and you and I are trusted is because we're just real people having real conversations. It's not slick Madison Avenue, highly published, polished. It's just real people talking about real things, and you can count on it. So so I say if you've got a message to tell the world, then this is the best medium. So get out there, be honest. I've ended every episode, and we're talking over 100,000 episodes between all the shows we do. Every single episode, I've ended with the
Wow.
phrase, keep it real, because
Hmm.
that's what works. If you try to be the cool guy, if you try to be slick and you're not, people see through that. But like you said earlier, we're just yakking, we're having a conversation. People can tell we're real. I'm real, you're real.
But also, Chris, for example, this podcast, 5 Steps How to Make the First Million. Okay,
Mhm,
so people might think people, yeah, can perceive, right, that okay, that Harris is one of the highest authority in help businesses to make the first million. Yeah, but let me tell you something. There are some things that they are positive about this statement. I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, I already spoke with 500 millionaires sharing the blueprint.
mhm.
So from an honest conversation, the same way that I'm doing with you.
Yeah,
So the amount of knowledge and expertise that is already into my head,
yeah,
hand to hand, with the is probably one of the highest in this specific topic. Yeah.
yeah,
And the second thing is exactly what you said, the connection. Honestly, I can't tell any business around. I just need to make a phone call because with the network that the podcast recreates. So the fact that, that the perception is that I'm one of the biggest authority in helping companies to achieve the first million,
mhm,
um, it's not only just a statement. I get, the point that you say, who trusts the media. It's not only a statement. Is that the reason that there is this perception is because podcast host has behind a network relating the topic. For example, the topic of your podcast, right?
yeah,
Um, in that specific topic, you have seen like the highest authority. But you know why? Why is you the highest authority? Because anything related with the topic, any problem that somebody has, anything that they want to do in a
mhm,
special event, the only one that have the owners of venues, the owners of the stadium, the access to the players, is you because you do have a podcast about the topic. So in your podcast can be players, can be directors, can
yeah,
be this and that. So that's why it. So the 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 result that the study had created is no. It has some fundamentals behind, which is actually the amount of knowledge that a podcast host get
yeah,
in whatever topic he's talking about. Literally make him someone one of the greatest expert in the world in that topic. I agree with that. So, Chris, now let's talk a little bit more about uh, your journey. Why you decided to become an entrepreneur? What happened there? Do you
yeah,
anybody in your family is an entrepreneur? Do you read a book by
yeah.
accident? What happened?
Yeah, actually, growing up, my father worked for the largest stained glass studio in the country. He was one of the foremen. He ran the whole southern US. He was in charge of. And when I was a kid, he broke off from that company, started his own company. So I got to see entrepreneurship, up close and personal. And I saw all the lessons he learned along the way, going from being an employee to being a boss. And then he kept leveraging it as I grew up, and he would add more businesses. He did ultralight airplanes. He did those for a while, and just because it was a passion, and he made money at it. Uh, and so I saw, by the time I was in junior high school or middle school, I saw, wow, this entrepreneurial life is the way to go. You know, what they teach you in schools, they teach you to be an employee, and they teach you not to think and not to be creative. But as an entrepreneur, it explores your superpower, your genius. You had mentioned that, you know, you are now a world expert in what you do in finding that first million. I'm a world expert in podcasting. That's because we've sought out our genius and grown that. And and so I saw that when I was in middle school. I started my first business. It was taking broken down bicycles, fixing them up, repainting them, and selling them. And that was my first business, and I made a lot of money for a little kid. And I tell people I have been gainfully unemployed my entire life.
So, but so how was the reaction of your family and friends when they decided that you never gonna have a job, that you're gonna be your own boss? What your parents and friends said?
Yeah, my mother was confused by it all. She didn't understand any of it. But my father,
She's
he
asking
was
you, can you make money out of this?
yeah,
How you
yeah,
gonna
he was
live?
act
How you gonna
he
find your money, right?
right. That's all she was like, you should get a job. And my father, he understood it, but he wanted me to go into his industry and wanted me to be in his business. And I would find things in his business that, you know, computers were just coming out when I was in high school. And I said, we should computerize your mailing system. And again, he didn't want to see that. So I said, look, I'm doing my own business. I'm happy to help you. In fact, I did. I worked as an artist in his business, drawing the actual windows for church windows. So I did the artwork in about 200 churches around the United States. Uh, but I couldn't see a future in that business for me because it wasn't enough technology for me. But yeah, my father didn't understand it, but he understood entrepreneurship, so he was 100% behind me all the way.
So then, Chris, um, what are when you there is a problem with the industry out there that you talk about having a business, right? Because it's all about talking to strangers. And
Yeah.
when we are kids, our parents are telling us, don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strangers. And now you're in business, all you have to do is talk to strangers. So imagine, you see, we've been raised. I mean, our parents are they doing the best they
Yeah.
can. But you know, if you're a kid and you see a stranger and you want to talk to it, your parent will come and tell you, hey, don't do that. Don't talk to a stranger. This is bad. Never do that again. Yeah. So now we all have in our unconscious mind that fear of public speaking, that fear of
Yeah.
talk with the strangers, because it came from the people that we love the most, and it's embedded so hard in our unconscious mind that we don't even know that it's there. But now, and after that, then we want to do a podcast. We want to do a business, and now
Yeah.
talking to strangers is good. We have to embrace talking to strangers. So,
Yeah.
what do you think that the fear of public speaking, which is the biggest fear that a human being can have, there are a lot of surveys that demonstrate that. So, how you overcome your fear of public speaking, because going a podcast is clearly public speaking,
Yeah.
and how you overcome your own fear of talking to strangers, because I think that a large percentage of the population. I do this for a living. I reach over 1 million people online teaching them how talking about how to overcome the fear of public speaking, over 10,000 people in live events. So how you remove this fear from yourself, uh, whether talking to clients or doing the podcast, we're talking with the strangers all the time, and what you recommend for other entrepreneurs out there, like somebody who might come to you and say, Chris, I want to do a podcast, but
Sure.
they have this fear. They don't even want to tell to you that they have it, but we all have it. So how you did it, and what advice you have for others that this is the only thing that is stopping them to go for it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that does come up a lot. As far as my story of how that happened, I was the third of four kids, and my older brothers got a lot of attention. My younger sister got a lot of attention. I was the one that never got any attention. In fact, people didn't even know if I was in the room half the time. So, uh, so I found I needed to be heard. I had this need to be heard. So when I got into high school, I went into debate. I went into acting. I went into all kinds of ways to be heard. Uh, and then so podcasting was not a hard thing for me at all. I mean, like I said, I was doing internet radio before podcasting started, just because uh, something somebody said a long time ago has stuck with me forever that says, look, when you're talking to somebody else, I don't care if they're Elon Musk, Donald Trump, or the King of Spain or whatever. They're people. They're just people. They still put on their pants the same way, and they still brush their teeth at night. They're just people. And once you realize that, you should have no fear of talking to anybody. You make millionaires happen. You could be an intimidating person to talk to that people go, oh wow, I've never made $1 million. Why would he want to talk to me? You're just a person, right? You're a person with a particular set of skills,
Absolutely, absolutely.
but you're definitely a person. And that's what I tell people. It's like, look, everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has an amazing story. And you need to be brave enough to tell your story because people will respond.
Chris, but let's face it, how about your clients? You have these clients, I know you have them that, they start to work with you and eventually they quit. I mean, you gave us the statistic, yeah,
Yeah.
that high percentage of people quit the podcasting, yeah, and they can tell you where I don't have the money, where I don't have this, I don't have that, but we know that is that fear. We know is this fear about what people are gonna think about me.
Mhm.
Is about the fear of rejection. It's about the fear of what people are gonna think about me. If you think this podcast by now, you should realize English is not my first language, and 1 out of 10 words that I say have spelling mistake or mispronounced. Yeah, my girlfriend, she's a philology, so every time that I do conference all over the world about public speaking, by the way. So I become a public speaking coach without knowing how to speak. Yeah, and apparently people like it, and which we don't I don't understand why, but they loving it, and the whole point is, and she prepares a report for me
Mhm.
every time that I do a conference. She's waiting for me, giving me the list of everything that I say incorrect. Look, you said present when it was past. You misspelled this. You want to say this word and you said another one. So, um, but I think that the secret why people like it is exactly what you said. Keep it real,
Yes.
and our imperfections can be our best friend. And
Yeah.
sometimes this is what people need to know. I think I happen to discover that people like my conferences, and they want to learn about public speaking and how grow the business from me because I don't know, I'm bold, chubby, not good looking. I got a lot. I got a lot of imperfections, so people feel more comfortable learning from someone that have some imperfection, right?
Yeah.
That's someone that is actually perfect. I mean, I'm even a little bit shabby. Um, so I think that Chris, this is the message that we should send out there to everyone that had that fear of stopping and start working with you. For example, I think that the product you have is fantastic, and I think anybody's listening to it to this broadcast and want to start the podcast, just do it. Yeah, you need
Yes,
support. I'm about to ask you that, Chris. Actually, how if people want to start the podcast, how they can find you, how this process work. But also, you see, if we want to achieve great things in line, we need a coach, we need a mentor, we have to make
yeah,
sure somebody that had done it before can help us out. So, and the other thing is that if you're not doing the podcast, if you're not speaking, if you're in business, you know what happened? Your competitors are doing it.
exactly.
Uh, don't let don't let fear go on your ways of your dreams. And
Yeah,
if you need help with that, definitely Chris can help you or can help you whatever you feel. But just go for it. So Chris, how people can find you, how the process work,
yeah,
and tell us
sure.
so everybody knows.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to reiterate what you just said about being real. The word I like to use is vulnerable. You know, if you show a vulnerability, people automatically like you more. You know, and I know it's hard. It's scary to be vulnerable and to be open and to say, look, you know, I don't really like this or I'm afraid of this. And but but you'll find it works. And so to answer your question about how people can reach me, my website, freshmediaworks.com. You can find me there, and it's got a way to set up a free phone call, and we can talk about what it is you need. And there's no cost for that ever. I've always told people information is free. I will tell you step by step everything you need to do, never charge you a penny. If you want me to do some of it, yes, then we'll have to charge. But but yeah, we definitely love helping people get out there because it's such a powerful medium. It is so powerful right now that, you know, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have told everybody podcasting is the way to go. But today it is 100%. If you're not doing it, do it. If you're still unsure, become a guest on shows. Uh, Getting in front of other people's audiences is a great tool. Right now, I'm in front of your audience. That, you know, that's huge. You know, you talk about the millions of people who tune into yours. Now my message has gotten to millions of people. So at the very least, become a guest. We've got a guesting service. We can help you find a good podcast that fits your audience. And then, you know, even if you don't want to be a guest, you don't want to do your own show, you need to be advertising on shows because it is such a great return on advertising spend. It's just so inexpensive to find your perfect audience, target your perfect message, and make sales or get new clients, whatever it is your goal is. So it's all on the website, freshmediaworks.com. And I'm easy to get in touch with. My name is spelled funny. Last name's pronounced Daly, but it's Doelle. You look for Chris Daly online anywhere, you can find me.
And with that note, see you in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneur like Chris break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.